The Love Life and Lose Weight podcast will teach you the art and science of changing your habits around food. If you know what to do, but can't figure out why you're just not doing it, this is the right podcast for you. I'm your host, advanced certified weight and life coach, Heather Beardsley. I've helped hundreds of women just like you figure out how to think and eat like a normal eater, lose weight, and love life on the journey to goal weight and beyond. Hey, it's Heather. Welcome to episode 14. This episode is called the F word. It's all about feelings. Many of us have an F word connotation with feelings that's negative because so many of the feelings that we feel are uncomfortable and we have habits of associating them negatively. Before I go into the process of how to allow feelings and why you should, I want to put it into a greater context for you so that you understand why it's important to allow the feelings that you feel to be there. This is a specific tool for a specific purpose. And unless you understand why and when you need the tool of processing how you feel, you will never be motivated to open up to feelings that feel like shit. But when you know that doing so brings you into a different result that is very, you know, something that you really want from your life, it gives you something that you're actually looking for, or it's a path to something greater, like your goals, evolving you to the next part of your life, then you will be more motivated to use the tool. It's no different than going to the gym. Nobody signs up to the gym to do leg presses or squats or burpees. Like they suck. Now, listen, there might be some of you avid exercisers out there who are so ingrained with the idea that these things are amazing. It just means that you've done thought work to help you overcome the internal resistance to pain and suffering. But this is kind of what I'm after, you see? Like that demonstrates, like, when you talk to somebody who loves burpees, they're like, I just love it. I just love it. And I'm like, wait, why? Why do you love it? They hurt, they're hard, they're exhausting. They're not a natural movement. They're a deliberate movement designed to really exhaust your muscles and your cardiovascular system. They're like, well, I don't love them for loving them, but I love them for what they get me. And that's what I'm after here with this episode on processing feelings. You don't have to love processing feelings, but I want you to develop a habit of associating opening up to how you feel in your life as a doorway to something greater, which is what you're after in your life. And when you don't allow your feelings, you make everything that you're after in your life harder and take longer. Okay. So I actually recorded this episode 4 different times because I couldn't quite get to how I wanted to explain the importance of this and where processing emotions fits in with other tools that I want to, like, I want you to be able to go into your workshop of tools and know which tool to pick out for which reason and which tools you love to like carry in your tool belt, right? These are all metaphors for your tool belt of living a strategic and purposeful life. It requires you to use tools that give you effective results and make it easier for you. On your own, without that greater context about why they're important and when to use which tool, they will just seem like exercises and wasting time, or like, why am I even doing this? What is this doing for me? You have to be able to attach the results you're after and the usefulness of the tool to what it gets you and why you need those things and in which order. Okay. So to do this, thank goodness for my podcast listeners, I had invited you all to tell me, feedback about your homework from previous episodes and come over to my Instagram account and just let me know like what you were thinking or what you need help with or questions. And I had somebody go ahead and give me this question. I'm going to read it to you. And it demonstrates so perfectly what I'm after here with why you should process emotions. Okay, so I'm going to read it to you. Her homework revealed that most of her overeats are over things she can't control. For example, feeling low energy, having knee pain, worries about adult children and their life choices, etc. She says, I see that I eat to comfort myself and escape the anxiety that builds within me. Notice that the feeling is anxiety, and she's noticing that it builds within her as she feels helpless in changing these situations. I have journaled, gone through the 4 N's. That's just a process for thinking and changing up your thinking that we go through in the membership. Felt the feeling, but through your podcast, I realized I haven't figured out how to meet my needs in the moment or before the moment without food. Okay. So she has a habit of thinking about things that are concerning for her. And she's thinking in a way that's creating anxiety within her. When she feels anxiety, she can process the anxiety, right? But that's kind of like just treating a symptom and not the underlying problem. You see, she says, worrying about things beyond my control has been an issue for a long time. So that's her habit of thinking. That is the origin of the negative consequence of coping, which she's overeating over. You see, so she has a habit of worrying about things beyond her control. Even if she processes the anxiety, that doesn't fix the original problem, which is a habit of worrying about things beyond her control. She's not sure what her next step should be. I definitely see that figuring this one out is key to my success. Okay, so I didn't want to show you how to process your emotions without putting it into context. It's not the end all be all answer to everything. Oh, just feel your feelings. Everything will be better. No, she has this reader or listener has a lifelong habit of worrying about things beyond her control. And I would never suggest, of course, that she just not worry. I mean, there are people she cares about, that are going through things that aren't fun. And she wants her loved ones to probably be happy and, overcome their struggles, of course, like we all do, right? So, this is the context in which I wanted to put all of these things. So, the biggest context I wanted to remind you of is that overeating is a strategy that most of my clients have developed over a lifetime in order to cope with habits of thinking and relating to their life that cause negative tension to build up. Now, this could be a lifelong habit, or it could just be a habit that was picked up during an especially difficult time, say, a very stressful time in your life, and then that habit just continues. It's like any habit. Think about like biting your nails. Normally, that's like a nervous habit that would happen maybe when you're in college and you're just stressed out because you're studying all the time. And that habit can last you the rest of your life. It's the same with overeating. It could be from something as serious as like major trauma, or as little as just, being in a place and time where you're around food and it just tastes amazing and you develop a habit of overeating without an emotional component to it. Okay? So, in the context of what I'm talking about, there's the habit of thinking that a lot of my clients, and you tell me if this is you, creates a need for relief. So this could be chronic worrying, like the woman who wrote in, which is attention to negative projections in our life, attention, negative attention to things that we can't control. It's a shitty, horrible strategy that never works. It just keeps us in hypervigilant mode. That's another example. Hypervigilance can be learned by all kinds of negative dysfunctional patterns in our family of origin growing up. You know, if we grew up in a chaotic environment or with addiction or things like that, like it can create a hypervigilance in a child that, you know, they use as a coping mechanism. There's many benefits to hypervigilance. Um, being the one who constantly pays attention to other people's cues or what's happening around them can probably keep them pretty safe. And obviously it did when they were young. But using hypervigilance as a strategy for life will burn out your nervous system and create somebody who is having trouble regulating their nervous system because of this habit. And the thing is with these habits, it's just like part of who we are. It's just part of how we see ourselves. Oh, I'm a stressor. Oh, I always worry. I had a friend in middle school. The first time I noticed this in somebody, um, she would just she would shake like her whole arms, like she would get herself all worked up, worrying about, I don't know, just our friend groups in school, you know, like our classroom dynamics in fifth grade. She was just a shaker. She was just constantly worrying and stressed about everything. Now, I don't really know. I mean, I knew her when I was young. I don't really understand the origin of that or anything like that. But I do know that I can say with definitiveness that she was always off of her nervous system normal regulation set point of like calm. She was rarely calm. Um, and that's a habit that we of thinking that creates that state of being. Overdoing is another one. People who are constantly moving and doing to generate feelings that they feel worthy, helpful, you know, valuable to the family system. This yours truly is a little bit guilty of this. Um, listen, when people notice the things that you do, it feels good. It feels very validating. Many of us are overdoers. We're constantly, you know, overworking out, over helping, you know, all of these things, over giving. Um, it's a way for us to kind of bypass our own thinking in order to get those feelings of validation. And again, it just becomes part of our self identity. Like, I'm just a giver. You hear that all the time, right? Well, what if you couldn't give? Would you still be able to feel good about who you are? And if that's challenging, then you know you have a habit of thinking that's creating unnecessary tension in your life that you're going to look for relief from. All of these things that I'm describing, these habits of thinking, are um, strategies to try to regulate how we feel in terms of uh, our nervous system and our sense of safety and belonging in life, these basic needs. And finally, the last habit of thinking that you could develop that would create a need to overeat to find relief from is like what could start as maybe an idea that you need to lose some weight and then not being successful because you chose some bullshit like restrictive diet that sets you up to fail in the first place, then creates a sense of like, oh, I failed at that. I failed at weight loss. Then that becomes something like, there's something wrong with me. Why am I like binging on chocolate chip cookies? Well, no one tells you it's because you told yourself you couldn't have sugar or flour for no good reason. And all that restriction created a sense of rebellion, internal rebellion, and jacked up your habit brain, your limbic brain to think that you're in a famine situation because you're chronically low in calories. Yours truly is guilty of this too. I went through this. The whole thing created like actual, physiological problems in my body because of all the restriction that I did. So, what ends up happening is if you have a habit of chronically thinking you need to lose weight and yet you can't, that's a habit of negative self regard. Like, I don't do the things I said I should do. I can't lose weight. I'm not like other people. And then you become like this self identity of somebody who constantly needs to be fixing themselves because they're not okay as they are. So again, you can see where the tension would build up with any one of these things, and this is just like the tip of the iceberg as to what kinds of habits of thinking can create lots of chronic tension in our life that as human beings we will look to find some relief from. And we're in the space of weight loss, so we're talking about overeating. Okay, so there's the habit of thinking, and then there's things that we can do to change those habits of thinking. I'll be going over more of these different ideas that can disrupt these negative habits of thinking that create chronic tension. But today, I want to talk to you about two tools that are extremely helpful and when you would use them. So, the first tool is a preventative tool. So, before we change our habit of thinking, which can take a little while, we have some tools you can use to help you in the process as you change your habit of thinking. So the person who wrote in with her question about she has this habit of worrying about things beyond her control, that's her work, is to question the logic of always going to worrying to feel better, and telling herself the new and true story, that which is that choosing to worry is actually a choice, that she has other options like acceptance. She could go to a practice of acceptance and develop that relationship. What would that look like? Anxiety is always a feeling that's coded to thinking that is resisting what is. And so I would offer her, like, as a coach, like, why do you always want to make your loved ones feel better? Our challenges are our challenges, and no amount of worrying by anybody else makes them better. And in fact, the challenges that we have are our greatest teachers, and they evolve us in the struggle of overcoming those challenges to the next version of ourselves. So if you started thinking, like, just in terms of your own challenges, that your weight is trying to get your attention to help you learn something about you in a different way than you've been thinking about it. If you haven't gotten results with your weight, that perspective of thinking you haven't tapped into yet. And you'll know when you're onto something when it feels like relief to think it. So for the writer of the question, I would just say, hey, you know, what if, as the mom of your adult children who you are used to worrying about, you just stood in belief that they will figure it out, and being the example of what faith and belief in your kids, what that gives them. It models for them a powerful regard that they may not be able to tap into themselves. I remember I was speaking with a fellow coach a little like last year, and she's got super smart kids. Um, One of her kids, though, has dyslexia, and he tries really hard. Um, on this one particular day, he was studying for a spelling test, which can be particularly challenging for someone with dyslexia. And, he admires his mom so much, knows how smart she is, and wants to impress her, really wants to show her that he can overcome. And he was struggling on the word. And it was so uncomfortable for her to see him struggling. This is what our writer was writing about. When you see your kids struggle, like as a mom, it's so normal and human to want to relieve them of that struggle. And so my friend gave her son the correct spelling and then couldn't understand why he was so mad. I think it demonstrates really well this other perspective that is always not always so obvious, which is that perhaps in that moment, what that child really needed was to see his mom really sitting there. Just remember, I told you guys the story about the red tailed hawk calling her babies out of the nest, just persistently waiting, calling in that screeching call. So that's resoluteness. That's a 100% belief. That is not giving in. That is just knowing like you are going to figure it out. I will stand here in my belief of you as long as it takes for you to figure this out. And in your struggle, I know you get stronger. It's so easy to believe that we just need to make life easier and then everyone will be happier, but it's just not the case. And when you consider that, then you can go to work like on dismantling these habits of thinking that worrying even helps you. It doesn't. Belief helps you. Acceptance helps you. Acceptance in the struggle being, you know, difficult, of course, but also the greatest teacher for all of us. I remember when I struggled with my weight in my 40s, I was so like detached and in judgment of myself, thinking to myself, I just wanted to be a coach, but how could I be a coach if I couldn't figure out weight? And instead, I could have just been thinking, of course, I have a weight issue. I want to be the coach who like figured it out for herself. I mean, no disrespect to like the younger generation of trainers and stuff, but I don't want to go to a 20-year-old, 20 something year old who's a trainer who's never had a weight problem. I just don't think that they have the insight to understand, the patterns of thinking that happen through life that create overeating, that where like how you can help me access that. And that's why I feel called to do what I do because I'm making meaning from my struggles. So when you identify your habits of thinking that are in the way, that create a need for you to find relief from, that aren't working for you, and you find yourself overeating, well, you're going to need to, while you work on your habits of thinking, I want you to work on two things. Number one is meditation, and number two is processing your emotions on purpose. So let's talk about processing your emotions. Processing your emotions takes place, it's needed when you have a momentum going of feeling bad, okay? Wanting to overeat, right? Wanting to, I don't know, buffer, have more wine, overwork, whatever it is. You have a momentum going, and we want to allow that momentum to slow down. And so the thing that we can do is to actually open up to the feelings that we're feeling that are making us feel jacked up or below home base. That's when you need the tool of processing. When you wake up in the morning and it's a beautiful morning and you're having your coffee, you don't need to process your emotions. It's a tool for when you are noticing that you have tension building up from these habits of thinking about your life. And before you seek relief from them in overeating, I want you to process your emotions. And I'm going to go over what those steps are. I'm going to take you through it. Okay. So that's one tool. So that tool is a tool that's used for immediate relief of something negative. The other tool, which is almost more important, is a tool that we use in a preventative measure to help you access that different perspective and practice acceptance of how things are. Okay. And that means your feelings as well, right? So, and that tool is meditation. Meditation it's such a woo concept, an esoteric concept, which honestly needs a PR person because it's just not regarded as the incredibly powerful and transformative tool of change. It is an agent of change. It is an agent of awakening. It is an agent that will change your life for so many reasons. And I'm not going to go over what they all are on this podcast. That's for the upcoming episode, specifically all on meditation. But in the greater context, okay, we're going to go over it one more time. There's habits of thinking that create tension that is chronic, that leads to the need for relief from that tension. And if you have a weight problem and you haven't been able to lose weight, it's probably because you're overeating to feel better from these sources of tension, which can come from all different areas. It could be chronic worrying, hypervigilance, overdoing, or thinking that you're wrong or fucked up because you have weight to lose. Okay. Among a hundred other things. Okay. So we're going to work on your habit of thinking. We're going to use tools while you do that. One is meditation, and we do that proactively during our day before the tension builds up, or even when the tension has built up, we can use it. And the other tool is for when you're actively in the tension, and that is processing your feeling. Okay. So this processing of your feeling will take you from a negative connotation of feelings, the F word, to associating processing your feelings with freedom. Because what it does is when you develop a relationship with actually opening up to any feeling that you feel, it takes the good or bad away from it because it gives you an intimacy and a familiarity with your feeling body and gives you a space, a negative space in which to allow those to be as they are. And when you observe yourself processing the feelings, you will see that the feeling is like riding a wave and it brings you where you need to go. It evolves you in your life. Okay. So here's where you can kind of bookmark this spot in the podcast, and you can return to this spot over and over again if you want some help guiding yourself through processing a feeling. Okay. All right. Let's process what you're feeling. So you're going to first sit down in a comfortable sitting position with your feet on the floor with privacy if you can find it. It's only going to take a couple minutes at most. And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to connect with the feeling that is troublesome. So feel your feet on the floor, and I want you to take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. I want you to name the feeling using one word. Go ahead and speak it out loud, or you can feel free to write it down. What is the name of this feeling that we're connecting with and processing? Take a deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. We're going to be processing that feeling now. So do a scan from the very top of your head all the way down, past your head, your neck, your torso, your lower abdomen, your legs, all the way down to the tips of your toes. And go back up again if you need to locate it a little bit more. And talk me through where this is. Please name where it is. And then I want you to just observe. Take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Feel yourself being held by gravity in the chair. This is a safe space. We're just going to observe this feeling inside your body where you've located it. So using descriptive words, Can you please describe what the emotion feels like inside your body in this space that it is occupying? Does it have color, texture, movement, density, shape? Describe it as detailed as possible. If you need time, you can always pause the podcast while you finish describing it. And once you have a good idea of the description of this feeling, take another deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. Feel yourself in your chair. I want you to just stay with it. Just stay with it. How does it feel? Use those descriptions. Now, instead of describing the object of the emotion, I want you to describe how it feels inside of your body if you haven't already. Is it tight? Is it constricting? Is it electrifying? Is it dragging? And now I want you to just take the space that it occupies inside your body, and I want you to expand the space, the container of your body, to give this emotion more room to be there. Just go ahead and expand it in all directions, side to side, up and down. Give it more volume. Let it be. I want you to repeat after me. This is, and name your emotion. And I want you to say, I can be with this. And then take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And I want you to put your hand on your heart and feel the beating there. And notice that, as uncomfortable as this might be, that you can be with this. You are designed to feel this in your body. Your body is the perfect vehicle to feel all the feelings. And you are safe to feel them. It cannot hurt you, even if it feels uncomfortable. Notice that this process, you can go ahead and open your eyes, is like a wave. It's like riding a wave. You're not on a surfboard, you're just in the wave. And the wave is of emotion, when you allow it, takes you from one shore to the next, one place of being from the past. And in your relinquishing your movement to the emotion and how it moves you through your experience, it brings you to a new shore of being. Not necessarily better than before, but just different. And when you made space for the emotion, did you notice that it had changed? Did it change at all? This is the experience of emotional allowing, emotional processing. And it is really important for you to name it, witness it, allow it, observe it, and invite it back if it needs to be there. Okay. And so this process of allowing emotion will help you in those really tension filled times when your habit of wanting to eat to distract yourself or push down emotions by shoving our experience with food on top of it. We know that doesn't work. The feelings are all still there for you they're patiently waiting for you to feel them. And you don't have to go back in your past and feel all the feelings that have been unprocessed or pushed away or shoved aside. But all you have to do is just be open and willing to do this when you are noticing that you're in reaction to or resistance to how you feel. It requires a pause, sitting down, and just a couple of minutes of just taking yourself through this process. This is not a science. This is an art. My process of allowing emotions has changed over time. Yours will be unique to you. Feel free to add any elements that feel right for you. This is just a template for you to customize and adopt and adapt as your own. Okay. So see if you can feel on purpose over the next week any of the emotions that come up, and visit me on Instagram at Thrive in Midlife. You can find the episode 14 post there. And let me know what your reflections are, your ahas, your takeaways, or any lingering questions that you might have about the utility and the usefulness of this tool for taking the tension down from habits of thinking that set you up because you have a habit of overeating over them. Okay. It's one tool. And the other tool that we'll talk about next time will be about meditation, my experience with meditation, and I'll take you through the same process where we can meditate a bit. Okay. I hope it's been helpful for you. Feelings aren't everything in your journey to goal weight and beyond. Feelings come and go, like I said, but they are a cue as to your habits of thinking that are setting you up to feel chronically and constantly feel in your life. So if you're feeling a lot of negative emotion that you're eating over, this tool is really going to help you. This and meditation, and also changing your habits about how you think about your life. And together, they will transform your life where you don't need to eat over your life. You just need to take in your life unbuffered by food. And that is that is a power that will make you feel more powerful than any superhero, especially when you felt controlled by food for sometimes decades. So I'm excited for you. Let me know how it goes. Stay focused on what you want, and we'll talk soon. So long. Hey, if this episode resonated for you, then let's connect. Visit hbeardsley.com/subscribe. That's HBEARDSLEY.com/subscribe and get on the list. You'll get a free gift, periodic coaching, plus advance notice of in-person events and workshops.